Okay, we're live.
This is a web framework, but it's well, I told you who I am. I'm just an auto hacker. Sometimes I have to work on Ruby stuff, so I also like Ruby. After a year working on Rails and Sinatra and some stuff in Ruby, and I came back to the Perl world and I discovered Mojolicious. And it's a really fine framework. I will try to tell you why. This is a full Mojolicious app. This is some kind of API on Mojolicious. It will always return a JSON with this data. The data structure in Perl looks almost the same as in Ruby. From here to here. And that's Ruby.
So what does the shift on the beginning do?
Yeah, that's the main difference between the both languages. In Perl, methods and functions has no signature. So all arguments to a function comes on an auto array. That's called at underscore.
Yeah.
Exactly. So shift is the keyword to shift an element from an array. If you don't say which array you will shift, it will shift from the default array. That's all the default variables in Perl are the underscore variables. So you will see along the talk a lot of shift and pop, and that means take the first or the last element from the arguments. So Mojolicious is a full framework, full web framework. So it is client and server, not only MVC framework. It has Mojolicious that is an asynchronous client, and also has Mojolicious Lite and Mojolicious. Mojolicious Lite is just a little code on top of all the framework. It can do anything, can do a Mojolicious full app, but with some more like Sinatra and stuff. All the Mojolicious distribution has no dependencies beside the Perl 5.10. That's today the current Perl is Perl 5.16. So I think most of distributions, most of Linux distribution today has 5.10 or 12. So that's not a problem. One of the main concerns on the Mojolicious development is to be bleeding edge, and what that means is it's from the ground up it was built being not blocking, so all these events will all run there, so all requests are concurrent. Of course you can stop it, you can query a database, and if you don't do it in a concurrent way, you will stop the wheel, of course. But if you don't, it will be concurrent. And that's pretty important because you can define what sockets pretty easy in Mojolicious. So you can stop the web sockets. So you have to be concerned about that. And it has native support for IE version 6. I think this is, from most of Perl frameworks, the big difference between the Perl frameworks and the Rails world is, in Perl, the frameworks are all model agnostic. We build our applications heavily on cpan, so we use database database framework from cPann. There are plenty of database frameworks in cPann. So Mojolicious, like all the other Perl framework, has no preference. You can use whatever you want, you like. It's validation agnostic. Also, there is a lot of validation frameworks in cPann. The core try to be minimal. Indeed, there is a lot of things that start in the core, and when it starts to grow up, it is separated into a different distribution. Like internationalization will, in the today version, it includes internalization, but next week we'll see the light, the next version, the version number 3, and it has no internalization. That plugin goes to cPann and has its own light. So we love cPann, of course. One of the most important things in the cPann, in the Mojolicious core, is to be minimal, to be well tested. It's less than 10,000 lines of code. It has 17,000 lines of tests. It has 9,000 unitary tests. And there is a rule in the core team that says no, there is no feature if there is no enough tests for it. And maybe there are some features that are not well tested, but you cannot rely on those features because it can go away till the feature has tests. If the feature has enough tests, it will stay and only can go away in a .0 release, like a 3.0 release next week. So there is another meme in the community that says if you find a bug or if you can manage to make a test, Sebastian Riedel, the author of the framework, will fix it, and it works. If you send a test, it will be probably solved in a matter of hours, sometimes minutes if you can find him on IRC. The author, Sebastian Riedel, is the author of Catalyst, that is the main framework in the Perl community. So he knows about what frameworks. And one day he break parts with the core team of the Catalyst because he wanted to break backward compatibility on the Catalyst project. So he went out, well, they went him out. And he started calling Mojolicious. Mojolicious started as a framework to build web frameworks. So all this part is a framework to build frameworks. So then he created Mojolicious on top of Mojo, and then he created Mojolicious Lite on top of Mojolicious. So now we create applications on top of all the frameworks. Installing Mojolicious, the last version is easy if you don't have the toolchain, but if you use Perl, or like me, you prefer to use the Perl toolchain, we use cPann minus. cPann minus, installing Mojolicious takes about 1 minute 15 seconds if you don't parallelize tests. If you parallelize tests, it will take 15 seconds. Downloading the framework, installing the framework, and testing the framework.
Can you please tell what's the difference between cPann and cPann minus?
Yes, of course. cPann is the main toolkit for installing cPann distribution. cPann minus is like a refresh on that. It uses a different index to search for distribution. If you use cPann and you search for a distribution that is part of another distribution, it won't find it. This will find, because it uses an index that will search deep, will find, okay, this distribution belongs to this other distribution, so I found this one. my advice is if you use Perl, don't use cpan, use cpan means.
Okay.
So I will start with the client side. The client side is based on two other modules, that is user agent and DOM. The user agent is what I told before, is a sync IO client, of course with socket support, and the Mojo DOM is DOM parser and CSS free selector parser. It's like having jQuery on top of the browser. So we build a new agent and we grab the Mojolicious homepage. That's easy. We use the verb. We can use any verb we want to use. We get the Mojolicious. We get the response, the object response, and from the response we get the body of the response. Not the body of the HTML, the body of the response. It is capable of it's capable of getting JSON, of course, and it will parse for you. And after that, you have a Perl structure, so you can get data from there. You have two keywords for getting into for using selectors. You have the 8 keyword that the 8 method that will return the first element that you found, or you can use find, that it will return a collection of elements. So a collection is another Mojo object that has a lot of methods. One is each, so you can get the dig homepage from the response, you get the DOM from there. You use a selector, you get all the H3 tags with that class. Inside of that, all the links, and for each one, you print out the text inside each element. This will iterate on every find element. Passing arguments to DOM is the same as calling find. Here is how you post a form. You get the transaction response if it's a success. And as I told you, this is complete. You can use parallel all the time. It's completely asynchronous. So you can set a lot of requests, and then you start the loop. So each of those will do the request, and when the response came, it will call the callback. So here I define an anonymous function, and I pass it.
So is a request lazy by default? So it does not execute until
No, it is not by default. If you pass a function, it will be lazy. If not, it will return the transaction. So it will do log. Yeah. And also you can, this is really advanced. You can decide to issue like several requests, but you have this object that is kind of a guard. So you will launch all the requests, and then you will wait. When you wait, you will get an array of all the responses from this anonymous function. So this is an array in Perl. So you will get all the titles from those URLs. Okay? Yep. Doing a WebSocket connection is that easy. So you just give the URL, you get an anonymous function, and then you define all the events. The on method is for for defining events. So you say on finish I will execute this function, on a message I will execute this one. When I connect, I will send hi there. That's it. This code can run alone in a script. If you are into in a full Mojo application, you don't need to start the loop because you are into a loop. Mojo has also a command line client. Well, it's all the same you saw before into a command line client. So that's the get command. Get command you use like the other. So you get Barcelona's URL and you get all the page tag. You can also use selector, so give me only the title and it give you the title. Or you can say I want the text into the title or wherever you want. And also you can get JSON. It will detect the header of the response, it will know what to do, it will get the code structure, and it implements, as I told you, we want to implement all the new stuff, so Mojolicious implement the JSON pointer specification. So you can use the JSON pointer specification to get data from the response. In this case, one of the keys of the hash. And you can use the variables option and you will get all the headers of the request and the response. Of course, you can get all the headers of the response to debug your application. If you are writing, for example, a scrapper and something is not working, you can set this environment variable and you will get this from all your requests. Or you can use events to debug. You can set events like when a request starts, when it stops. You can use those events to do whatever you want. For example, I use the start and finish events for implementing GZIP compression and decompression on the client in one of my applications. So before the request is issued, I set the header, I accept GZIP, and after that I decompress with the header. Okay. Now, one of the frameworks. Today I will base most of my explanations on the Light framework because both are mostly both can do the same. There is like this one is most suited for getting started, like today. That's great for small application, for prototyping, or for embedding. Because Mojolicious has no dependencies, barely is present in most modern OSs. So this is great for embedding. So again, we use the command line helper. This time we use generate, and we generate a light app. We call it hello. And this is what it generates. By default, it will use a plugin that will render documentation for all Perl modules installed in your box. Of course, this is one of the first things you take out when you write the application. And this will define a method for the /route, and it will render a template called index. In the Light applications, you are not forced to, but you most probably will use templates into the only file. You can place your templates in the data section of your script. In Perl, you can, after data section, all you place there is not part of the program, it's like a file handler. So it will read for you, it will load, and this is exactly the same of having this file with this name into the template directory of your application. The default templates is called EP, embed Perl, and it mostly is Perl. That's not too many more than Perl. Some helpers like title or content. So here is, we have an index that it will use a layout called default, and this is the layout. The layout will bring, will put this into the content.
Do they also support other kinds of templating engines like
Yes.
Haml or something like that?
It supports Haml. It supports Haml. I think it's not quite used, but it supports a lot of template engines more common in the Perl world. But if you prefer to use Haml, yes, it supports. And it's quite easy to add support for any existing template engine. You have another command in your application that is routes, and it will show you which routes you have in your application, and also it will show you the name of the route, because if you use a helper like form4 or whatever, you can use that name, of course. You run the application using the development server. It's called Morbo. All the No, that's
My voice is shaking.
The AC hosts the projector.
The Morbo will restart your application if you change anything. It is mainly focused on development. It's only one process. Of course, it's asynchronous, and it works pretty well. Indeed, I use the Morbo server for some production, really small apps, because it works. We'll start the application in the 3000 port. You can change that here in the option B. And now I will add some of the rows. The render can render a template, or can render JSON, can render text, can render a lot of things. In this case, I will just say hello world in a text response. It will set the header, okay? First, I can define a route for hello with a placeholder name, and here I will set another route for hello, a post route, and I pass. This is Perl for passing a reference to a function. So this is a function. It will get the parameter in the param method. When I say here self equal shift, shift is the first parameter this method will reside, and it is the request object. It's the controller object. In the context of a light application, well, you don't use that much controller. That's most for full applications.
Could you also supply parentheses to sub hello and?
Yes, and you can add another, yeah.
Or, and you can say the first parameter is self, and then you don't have to shift it. It will be the. Is it like that?
No.
No.
You not in default Perl. There are modules for doing stuff like that, but not in the default Perl.
Okay.
There is a module called declare that lets you do stuff like that.
So what does this hello method do when you don't supply the name parameter on the post?
In
call?
this case, it will be undefined. It will warn. But
Okay, but it does not get that you need the hello parameter and returns only.
in this case, it won't work. It won't match the route. But in this case, it
Yeah.
will.
Undefined, okay.
Yeah. If you don't supply, and it's a get request, it won't match any route.
Okay.
you can define default values for those things.
Okay.
So here again we see roads, and those roads has default names. If you don't supply a name, it will get a default name. Don't know if I have an example of giving a name. If not, I will show you. Okay, those are the most used captures mechanism that we have. This one is to capture anything but slash or dot. Then you can capture anything but slash using the hash bound, or you can use, like here, you can use that for capturing everything. So it will capture anything starting by hello. So that's okay if you know what you're doing. If not, you can piece off all the roads. These kind of roads are more useful if you define it on the end of your application, because it will match from the beginning.
So first match wins.
First match wins, but at compile time, it is compiled on a singular regular expression for being more fast. And then we render the Groovy template. By default, it's an HTML, but you can also pass a format, and it will render whatever format you ask for. Let's try again. Of course, you can define same row, different method, or you can use the any verb, and you can say, okay, you can use any with anything, like here. You can use any, and this will match all verbs, or you can say any, but you will say, okay, any, but any of those.
QW?
Yeah, so QW is like a Q percentage in Ruby. It's for defining a list. No, Q in Ruby is W.
Yeah, yeah. Fine, that's not right.
That's not right. Yeah, this is a list, but it's enclosed on This is enclosed here, so it is it's a reference to this array. And you can get the request object, and from there you can get the method or whatever is in the request. All this stuff we are looking at the light application on the back will define motion things. So when we define this, it will create something like this. It will get the roots object, and it will define this road via this method. We call this callback. This is what happened underneath, and you can, I don't know if it's quite useful in a lot of situations, but you can manipulate all the roads in runtime. You can have a method that change everything in your application in runtime. I never use it, it's possible. You can reach the roots object and you can delete things, for example. Yeah. Can you imagine why?
We are doing that in our Rails app with the API team. We have a domain-specific language for generating documentation for each API call, and each call defines its own route, and each route where this API call is reachable also defines a documentation route that we automatically
Okay,
generate.
instead of match all and then parse, you
Yeah,
define.
we define those specifics that
Okay.
are
That's
there.
cool. And also you can give conditions to your placeholders. You can say I will capture this into foo, and foo will be something with numbers inside. So if this does match, it will go here, and here it will, well, it will capture into bar, and bar has something. And
So that's useless. Point star operator there is a regular expression? Because
Yeah,
it would match that anyways, right?
it will match. It will match everything but an empty thing.
Ah, okay. No. Star means 0 or
Start,
any
yeah.
number.
This is not much useful. Yes. So, QR is for a compiled regular expression curve. And you can use the render saying text this, or you can use the method render text and giving the text is exactly the same. All the renders has the both. You can use render JSON or you can use render JSON is this. And if you use render JSON, you pass a data structure and it will be converted using Mojolicious converter. What is interesting of all the Mojo framework is if you use the Mojo toolkit, all is asynchronous. So if you are converting something that came from file, you can open the file in a regular manner and that's okay. But if you use a Mojo byte stream object, it will convert asynchronous. It will read from the file and it will keep going. So here is how we define default values. This row will match also for slash. And in that case, the name will become world. And this will say hello world or hello whatever. Also, there are a lot of other conditions not much use, but there exist. If you pass a list, you can use a regular expression to match any header of the request. So here we have a nice page for Windows users. Or we can use all together. You can say staff will have a digit. If it does not exist, it will be 23, and then render. And helpers can be used on the controller side or on the template side. All helpers can be used both sides. And when you define a custom helper, it also exists on both sides. Indeed, you access the same option. Under is for defining some kind of breaches. So when you define on a live application, you say under this anonymous function, it means that all method you define after this will run this code before. And if this code returns a false value, it will stop the request. So this is quite good for validation, for example. This is a stupid validation. Like if there is a parameter called name and the name is vendor, okay, you can pass. And then we have the slash, the home page, that only will work if you pass vendor on the name.
Can you go back?
Yeah.
How do you pass? Just a square parameter, it's not part of the URL.
Yeah. In this case, for the parameter, exactly. What's important here is this line. You should return a false value.
Or a true value.
Or you could return the false value at the beginning and then it's not return.
If you return here, this code will not be executed. So yeah, here you return a true value if name equal vendor. If not, it will render template denied and then it will return false. Because you can render this template, but if you don't return false, Perl is like Ruby. It will return the last execute instruction. So this returns true, so this is true, and all goes to here. Here you say I will render index, and this up. If you define a method and you don't give a function, an anonymous function, you can give a string and it is used as a template name. So for really simple routes, you can just say, okay, I want to use this template.
So under some kind of before filter. The under function is some kind of before filter.
It's a simple before filter. And the under thing is made of something called bridges on full Mojolicious apps that is much more powerful than before filter, but yeah, it's like a simple usage of that. You can also use under in this way. You can give a string, and in this case, it means all roads coming after that will use this as roots. So here bar will be foobar, and bus will be foobar. Again, this is a really simple usage or something more powerful that is used to for mounting full applications inside other applications. EP templates, I will show you that's really simple stuff. You can execute Perl like this. You can execute and print escape like here, and you can execute and print without escaping using two equal signs. Or you can use, like in Perl or in Ruby, you can use this one to put a comment there. And all this is the same as this. You can, wherever you prefer. You can use this or you can use this. Same. You need to use this format if you want to put HTML or whatever other text in the same line. So here is an example. For each framework on that array, I will print framework by author. Author came from whatever. All the same. While these two variables came from that each hash ref, I will print this out.
So this add dollar thing is like follow that reference and give me the object.
Yeah, in this case, this issue tells Perl, I know this framework reference is a reference to an array. So the reference as an array. If it's not an array, Perl will broke. Perl will say this is not an array. And will die. While with Blanche, it will raise an exception. I don't have any example of that, but if you have an exception wherever in your code, on your templates or your controllers or whatever, if you are in the development mode, the framework will capture the line and will show you in the browser the code and everything, the reason. It's quite useful. If you are in production, of course, it won't. The Morbo server sets development mode, and the production server sets production mode by default. You can change that. So here's a list of most common template engines used in the Pablo world. There is a lot more. Today I look at the list and Zipan, and really long list. Helpers. With every application you have two plugins load by default. That is, one is default helper. Default helper has all these helpers. App will give you the application object. Config will give you config. There is a lot.
So Flash is like a Flash scope in Rails?
Yeah, exactly the same. And one of the most used helper in Mojo is Stash. Stash is a global namespace. Stash is a global namespace shared by all your roles, not all the application. It only lasts for one request. It starts fresh when the request starts, it dies when the request ends. So it's a way you pass things to your templates, or if you have before filters or after filters or whatever, you can pass objects through the Stash.
Will they be stashed even for redirects?
For redirects. For?
When you redirect from one,
Yeah.
like,
No, there you need to use the Flash,
okay.
because Stash only lasts for one request. Yeah. So everything you put into the Stash becomes a normal per variable on the template, like here.
So when you call stash 1 in the template there, you...
This is exactly the same as this.
Ah, okay.
If you give another value, you can set this value.
Okay.
Later. Yeah, this is the same as this one. And Damper, I don't know if you don't know Perl, there is a really useful model called Data Damper that will dump every Perl structure. It's something like the in Ruby there is a method.
It's back.
Spec, yeah. So you have the default helper called dumper. You can dump everything. You can dump an object. You can dump. And there is tag helpers. Tag helpers are specialized for HTML5. So you have the most common ones, and it's really easy to add new ones. And you use in this way. You can say tag div and it will open div tag. You can say t div and it will, it's the same. T is an alias for tag. And then you have another tags that has its own names, like JavaScript, style sheets, form 4. Form 4 you can use in several ways. You can give the name of a road, you can set the action, you can set the method, or you can depend on the auto method, whatever you want. Text field, checkbox, whatever. Link, the same. You can. It depends on the parameters you give. It will work in one way or another.
It's heavily inspired by Rails, isn't it?
Yeah. Of course. URL width will give you the current URL with all query parameters, so you can change one. This is very useful for pagination, because I don't care whatever it came to me. I say I want to change the page from current +1. The data dumper stuff, the helper, is quite easy to create a new one. The code looks almost like this one. look at the code that you need. There is no new ways to do it. So adding new helpers to your application is just using the helper function, giving a name, and giving a nominal function, and that is. You receive your controller again, all the values passed to it. You can do whatever you want. Then you can use this helper both sides. And after you create a lot of plugins in your applications, you will create another application and you will need the same plugins, the same helper, so it's quite easy to package into a plugin. So this is the helper, this is a plugin for that helper. Of course, into a plugin you can put a lot of helpers, or you can use the events to alter the way the framework works into plugin, because here you can say you receive the application object, so you can say before request I want to execute this one, or after I want to do that, or whatever.
Or you can change the routes.
You can choose the routes, you can do anything.
Do all nasty stuff.
Yeah, a lot.
If it's Tuesday, then I don't serve this route.
Yeah.
You are 500.
Yeah, indeed, there is a plugin called Zombies Apocalypse that do stuff like that. And there is a lot of core plugins that came with the framework. They are useful, and they are very useful as examples for creating new ones. There is one that called Mount, and this is used for mounting full applications into another application. So here is how you use in a full application, here is how you use in a light application. So you say, this is my application, in this case it's probably a light application, and I say I want to mount, after prefix, I want to mount this application, and it will work. And I have no example here, but in the documentation it's pretty well documented. You can modify a lot of things, because in a route you can say I want to place these values into a stash. I can define a route and say when you match this route you have to place name equal blah 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 into the stash. So when I mount a full application, I can say all the names must change to this one. So you can alter all the behavior, all the behaviors of the mounted application. There is, of course, a lot of plugins in Cpan. There are plugins that are in the Mojolicious plugin namespace, but there is also plugins in the Mojolicious namespace. In Perl, there is a long tradition of doing extensions to distribution, adding an X to the name. So Mojolicious means Mojo extension.
And things without X, are they officially
No.
supported, or
No,
That's
Cpan is first come, first served.
Okay. So just a matter of style, how you name those?
Yeah, probably if you register a plugin that the core team is thinking of use, you will get an email and you will talk.
Yeah.
There's no, for example, the URL with helper. I was into the IRC discussing about this helper because I have my implementation and another guy has his implementation into a plugin in Cpan. So we start to talk, and the author decided to add this helper to the framework. So we send an email to the author of the plugin and we change things. In Cpan you can give permission for your namespace. You have, by default, you have signed cookies as for sessions. You have signed cookies as a feature of the framework, but also if you use a session, by default, it is stored in a signed cookie. There is an extension for server-side sessions.